There we go. Let's get him on the phone.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
You're a little bit soft, but I can hear you pretty good.
I'm a little bit soft? Okay, well, I can turn it up a little bit. How about now?
That'll work. We'll make it work.
Okay, we'll make it work. How you doing, man?
I'm getting old.
Aren't we all, though?
Yes, we are.
Well, Merry Christmas to you and yours. It's been a long time since I've talked to you. I cannot imagine I can't imagine what kind of stories have happened from the time you left here back in 2015. Around this same time, it's been a few years.
Yeah, it's been. I think it was in just about this time of year, 2015, if I recall.
Yeah, what's that? Oh, shut it? Okay, sorry. Pam was telling me to shut the door here. Anyways, man, how is your Christmas going? How is your health going? I got so many questions for you, I don't even know where to start.
Well, first let me start by saying it's good to see you keeping up the spirit. And I love watching everything you do with Northern Exposure, of course. And, of course, in fact, I just put a note up. I said, the very first fan, that is an absolute fact, you know.
That's right. That's right. You are.
Yeah. No, it wasn't called Northern Exposure. We tried a couple dozen names, and none of them worked. And I do not know where Northern Exposure came from. I got an idea where it came from, but I don't know for sure. But that was a good name.
That's right. Your name was On Ice, correct?
Yes. When we worked on the project, we referred to the project as Project On Ice.
Project On Ice. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
On Ice. That was the working title of the work that we did initially. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your journals. I mean, why did you even feel compelled to write these journals? I mean, did it come naturally?
Yes, I still do, not as much as I used to, but I used to do a journal page or more every day of my life, including every phone call, every contact, and then pictures. You know, way back, and then we're talking early 70s. You know, photographs were all via Kodak. You know, Kodak film. Not like today where we have the ease of taking so many photographs. But a lot of my journals had a lot of photographs that I would paste in them, and I just did it to keep track of what we were doing, and I still do it. Although I don't do it quite as much, but I still do journals with photographs.
Yeah, so I mean, you almost have to work with technology. It's becoming a lot easier to document your everyday use, you know, especially if you use Facebook. They show you your memories right outright, you know.
Yes. Now, the bad thing about Facebook, the good thing is that we get to put stuff where everybody can see it if they want. The bad thing is no one knows how to keep it.
Facebook keeps it, that's for sure. The problem is they own it. I think they own it at that point. So if any newscasts were to use it, I think they would have to put compliments of Facebook instead of compliments of DB Brown. But I understand what you're talking about, the keeping of journals. I mean, I remember even in my time being taught how to write journals, you know, where to put the heading, where to put the date, this and that. So, I mean, my teaching in school was obviously a stem of what you guys did back in the old days is natural. But what makes your journals unique, not only were they sold to Joshua and John Falsey, Josh Brand and John Falsey, you were an Alaskan Bush Pilot in Talkeetna, which was the town of Sicily that we know today.
Yeah, now I'll make one correction there that Josh just made to me recently.
Okay.
They didn't buy my journals. He made a point of that, in fact. United Artists paid for them, he claimed. And I believe that's right.
Wow, United Artists.
Yeah, that's what he told me. We were talking about that in May or June, about the time the thing was happening in Austin, and we had a conversation. And he said, "I recall that United Artists bought those," and I said, "Well, I'll tell you this." And I was honest with him because I know those guys, But I said, I'm pretty sure it wasn't your money because I don't think you ever spent any money as long as I've known you.
What do you say about that?
And that's still true today. Oh, I think we chuckled, but I don't think it was anything else,
Yeah. Because he knows. And
well,
when you're in the biz,
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, when you're in the biz, even when it comes to like nowadays, Rob Zombie, big rock and roll star creating a horror movie, he doesn't try to use his money. I mean, the guy's worth millions of dollars, and he still did a GoFundMe to make a movie and let the fans fund it.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's just how the business works. So I could see him laughing it off with you because it's true. He didn't use his money for anything.
Yeah, he made a point of it. I didn't use my money, and John didn't use his money, but United Artists, I think, paid for that. And I said, I know, I'm certain that you're correct. I don't remember it being United Artists, but I remember it didn't come from you guys, but it came from somebody you guys set up to pay the bill, and they did.
Right. I was going to say, United Artists, I mean, they're not even around anymore. I think United Artists is one of them companies that just kind of faded away. I want to say like other companies, I can't remember the names of them, but I know their logos, which is kind of crazy. I can tell you their logos, but I can't tell you their names, but I'm pretty sure United Artists hasn't been an entity since the early 90s, really. So they must have either lost a lot of money on Northern Exposure or sold it to CBS or whatever. Universal owns it now.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about all the dealings, and I do believe that there are even still some dealings going on with breaking everything up and selling it and so on.
Oh, man.
But he and I did discuss that he didn't think they paid for it, that someone else did. And I said, of course that's true. Every time we would go somewhere, I don't recall either one of them ever paying for a thing, period.
Was it on your tab, DB?
What's that now?
When you took them around Talkeetna, correct? You showed them what is the Fairview Inn, which is now the Brick. You took them on sled rides. They were taking it all in. And so was all that on your tab? They just had to get there?
Well, no, I don't know who paid for them to get up there. I actually think they paid for the tickets to come to Alaska the first time themselves, because I remember our conversation, and they showed up just a couple of days later. I don't think they had time. But all of the experiences in Alaska, either I paid for it, which I don't recall ever really doing that, but I probably would have. But I think the sled dog rides and some of the other things they did with aircraft, I think the people locally just gave that to them.
Oh, okay. Because from how you explained it before, they were big Hollywood stars, even though they were fresh out of college and they were newbies and everything else. This is what, 1979, 1980?
1979 was the first time, I believe, that they came up,
Okay. And they were just taking it all in, even though they showed up with glitz and glamour, right? Didn't you say they showed up in a limo and fur coats and this and that to small town?
Yeah, they showed up and they actually. This is another thing they did. They showed up. Now you got to remember that they were from Los Angeles. They were from Anaheim, actually, but Los Angeles, and they didn't know anything about cold. And you know what? They didn't know anything about long johns. Winter underwear.
Seriously? I'm wearing long johns right now, and I live in Texas. That's crazy. That must be a California thing.
Well, they weren't prepared for the cold when they first showed up. Now, within a day, we got them pretty well dressed out. But before they got to my place, a limo brought them to my place, and they stopped off at a place called David Green. He's a furrier in Alaska, made fur coats, expensive ones, and they rented 4 coats, one for each of them, and then one for each of the girls that they brought with them. They're assistants, they're personal assistants.
Man, I would love to have that rental receipt and tack right up on this wall. That would be so cool.
And, you know, the locals, you know, we're just a little mining town at that time. Now it's a big tourist spot, but at that time it was just a little mining town, and railroad tracks ran through town that went from Anchorage to Fairbanks. But for them to show up like that in fur coats and a limousine, I mean, that was the biggest talk in town that you could believe for a long period of time. I mean, the old timers, which, by the way, the old timers that we're talking about is on the wall of that pictures of the bar that I sent over here recently. And I mean, they just laugh their asses off. You know, these California dudes showing up in all these fur coats and you know, fur coats and alligator shoes, if you can picture that, you know.
Fur coat and alligator shoes. That's a California Alaskan right there, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
A Hollywood Alaskan.
It is.
Fur coat and crocodile shoes. Oh, man. So whenever
no underwear, no long...
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just said, and they didn't have their long underwear. So initially, they were freezing their asses off, you know.
Don't dress in stage props.
So, yeah. And you asked about my health. Last time I saw you, I was struggling with cancer, but
yes.
In the last 30 days now, I think I'm cancer free. I'm doing a lot better. So.
That is awesome, dude. I'm so glad to hear it. I've been worried about you, man. I was like, how, you know, because I haven't heard nothing about it. You looked, functional last time I saw you, but I know you've been having your up and down days. You know, it's ups and downs and everything else, and I just haven't heard anything. It's like, man, and then I would hit you up after a few months and be like, hey, how you doing? You know, you still above ground, and you'd come back, yeah, I'm doing all right. Still have my hard days, still have my good days. But I cannot, congratulations in it being in remission.
It's gone. They cannot find it right now, and that's just about less than a month ago. So I'm pretty excited about that. And that's part of the reason we're up here. Plus, we're still taking care of all of this property. Both Carol's mom and my mom were from this community, and they both died in the last few years, and we're still dealing with grandma properties, you know.
Oh, are you up in Alaska right now?
No, we're in Nebraska.
Nebraska, okay. And that's where you're from. That's where you're from originally, right?
Yes, from Nebraska originally, and both my mother and Carol's mother, my wife's mother, are from this community, and they both passed on here, and we're still dealing with their properties and all the stuff. We have one house left to sell, and we come back here for a few weeks every year. We still have some family here. Carol's family was into farming, so there's still some farms and stuff like that.
I don't know a soul in Nebraska that's not into farming or knows how to plant a seed. But my condolences to you and your wife, and I hope she's doing well. One thing, if you guys read the book, Talkeetna Good Time, you're going to find out that old Dennis Brown here is a man's man. Now, he comes from Nebraska, and he went up to Alaska, but at a teenage, you were just a teenager when you built your first house, right?
Yes, I started my first house when I was a teenager in Nebraska, and I was a strange kid. But you know, I don't. Are we live right now, Corey?
Yeah, we're live on the air right now.
Well, let me tell you a quick story, which will kind of place this maybe in some perspective. How my life's a little bit different than maybe some of the other people's lives that listening to us. My family wasn't particularly real well off, but they were reasonably well off, if you understand by that, what I'm saying by that.
Yeah.
But our friends were pretty well off, and one of our friends had a couple 100-acre farm west of Omaha, and we used to. He was a real well-off guy. Today he'd be a billionaire, and we used to land. He owned a whole bunch of planes, and we used to land right there in his yard, on his estate, just west of Omaha. And finally, they put a stop to it when we started landing one of the jets. We had a Lear jet. We had two of them, in fact. And we started landing the jets there, and we got in all kinds of trouble for that. They wouldn't let us do it anymore.
And just to cut in here real quick, you used to sneak away to learn how to fly. Your dad was totally against you learning how to fly, right?
That's correct. That's
okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I just wanted to add that.
Story.
I just wanted to add that because it leads up to you being an Alaskan Bush Pilot, which we're about to get to.
Well, I started out as a bush pilot from day one. In my whole life, I've been flying. I've owned lots of airplanes, lots of helicopters, and I wanted to mention in my story that our neighbor in Omaha is still there, and everyone kind of knows the name. His name is Mr. Buffett.
Mr. Buffett?
Warren Buffett was our neighbor.
Whoa!
He lived across the street.
Do you ever talk to him?
Yes.
Well, that's awesome, because, I mean, I just watched a documentary a few months ago, and for being the richest man in the world...
We're not friends. In fact, we're not friends at all. In fact, I only had one time that I got to spend quite a bit of time with him, but one time in the late 60s, he had breakfast with us at the ranch, at the place there on Pacific Street. And he lives across the street, and he's still at the same house.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, because he lives, that's what I was going to say. In the documentary, he lives in the same house he grew up in, and people are asking him, like, why the hell don't you move into a mansion like everyone else with money? But he still eats, like, his McDonald's Egg McMuffin every morning and everything else. He's still a humble person, even though...
he was because he was a neighbor, and because he was up and coming starter, he was actually considered by the people in the neighborhood as being they were jealous of each other. You know how that goes.
Yeah,
and
keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes, and he was the first person in the area in Omaha that anyone ever knew of to put a bowling alley in his house, and that was a big deal. Oh, that was huge.
I mean, and rightfully so, right?
Yeah, well, that was it. And he actually didn't grow up in that house, but they built it for him when he was really young.
Yeah, okay. So what led on to you saying, you know what, I just want to get out of Nebraska and head my ass to Alaska?
Well, before I went to Alaska, I spent 3 years in northern Manitoba flying.
Okay.
And I went up there flying for a missionary group in the far north of Manitoba. And I did that as an adventure, and partly the family friends had people in northern Manitoba. I was interested in what they were doing, and that's how I ended up being in northern Manitoba. And I mentioned when I get one of these talk show type things once in a while that I was up by Churchill, and one of the people that kind of inspired me was a guy named Farley Mowat.
Farley Mowat, I'm not
Farley Mowat. Farley Mowat is an author, and he writes books about the North.
Okay.
And he has written 20 million books.
You mean he's sold 20 million books?
He has sold 20 million books, Farley Mowat, and he did.
I can't imagine anyone writing 20 million books.
No, I'm sorry, you're right. He sold 20 million. But one of the stories that he did that inspired Northern Exposure, and this is another one that Josh reminded me of just this last May, was he did Never Cry Wolf.
Oh, okay.
And I also did one called The Snow Walker. That there were two movies that he ended up working on. Both of them are excellent. And anyway, he did those 2 movies, and he actually tramped, and literally tramped, between the Paw and Churchill, and I got to meet him on a number of occasions. In fact, I've had breakfast with him lots of times, and he was a very interesting character. Now, he wasn't. Someone just wrote for him. What great great Canadian author. But he did a Never Cry Wolf. He did all kinds of books. But in Never Cry Wolf, one of the things I liked very much is that airplane with a plywood back door. And that actually was an airplane that we were flying at that time with the plywood back door.
Wow. And you were talking last time when we did the interview back in 2015 that it's a major misconception about Maggie flying that little bitty Cessna whenever she's supposed to be a bush pilot. Whenever bush pilots fly bigger planes that carry major cargo and everything else, correct?
Yeah, that would have been the absolute minimum, and we had that conversation lots of times with people. That I thought that was poorly done, or at least they could have done it better. Now, if you recall, in one of the earlier series, they introduced a larger plane and another bush pilot and what have you, but they always kept it with that, and that was one of the reasons I think that the series didn't, in my opinion, didn't go on further, was that they just didn't have the vision for what it took to make it go further. And if you watch that thing I just sent you on John Cullum, that interview he did, he said the same thing. They just ran out of ideas and they wouldn't listen to anybody, and they didn't.
I did see that, and that's immediately what I was thinking of. It's like it's the exact same thing you were saying. There towards the end, they ran out of ideas, no matter how many writers they had. And you can see it. It is evident in season 6. I mean, season 6 is very cringeworthy to watch. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm a hardcore Northern Exposure fan, but when you got Chris and Maggie at a bowling alley in Sicily, which doesn't explain how it got there. It was never there before, but all of a sudden there's a bowling alley. And the same with Little Italy with Capra, going and eating at this Italian restaurant that all of a sudden is there. That was never there before. And and Maurice eats there all the time. It's like, where is this coming from? They're insulting our intelligence, But you're right. And John Cullum is right. They ran out of ideas, so they just start throwing stuff in there.
Well, if you watch the series, which I'm sure most of us have, is that what happened is that the people that were writing. Now, first off, remember, I think we've discussed this before, but they're what is it? They're part of the union, the guild, Writers Guild.
Screenwriters Guild.
So they were using all those people, and just by that alone, they reject a lot of ideas because they want to work amongst themselves. They don't want to go outside, and that was the culture at that time, and I think it still exists.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you're part of a union, you have guidelines, right? Anybody that's part of any union, you're going to have guidelines.
Yes, and they did, and what happened is they just kept getting writers that didn't have the experience up north. They tried to use their imagination and not what really takes place, and that's where the failure was at. That's what happened.
Wow. Okay.
And there's one other writer that deserves a lot of attention that I never talk about, and that his name was David
Chase.
David Essel. Dave Asselli, D-S-S-E-C. Dave A-S-S-E-A-L-E, I think. And he was a writer. I believe someone told me here in the last year that he's in Israel making movies over there. Now, he was Jewish, of course, like the rest of them. And he's still doing stuff that's pretty active. But he had a lot of good ideas, a lot of stuff that he added that was good.
Right on. Well, we can talk about the in and outs of Hollywood all the time. And you know what? I really hope to hit more on that with you. But let's touch on a winter and Christmas in Talkeetna, Alaska, from your perspective.
Well, in my book, Christmas in Alaska, if anyone has read it, there is a Christmas story in there, and that's Cold. In chapter 4, I think it is Cold, and it is a Christmas story about how people come to town in various ways. Some of them would bring dead sled dogs in their sleigh into town. Some people would bring the train. Lots would fly in. Some would have to walk in. And Christmas in town, they never captured that in NX, but it was a big event, and it was all local. Very much local. The churches would get together. The bars would get together. They'd all have great big potlatches or potluck dinners. Everybody would bring something. And I mean, that's what they did in the olden days back then. And by the way, at that time, there was not a single television in town. Not one.
I believe it. And that's on that. That was in your interview we did before.
Was it? I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, you talked to
TV.
Some producer of the TV show. You were trying to sell it to anybody that would listen, and they thought you would know who they were. I can't remember. It wasn't Walter Cronkite, but it was somebody else.
That was Walter. No, not Walter Cronkite, because Walter Cronkite came up a couple times and went with me. That was
that Lowell guy.
Charles Osgood.
Okay,
Osgood.
yeah. And he was like, you don't know who I am? Don't you watch TV? And you told him, we don't have TVs up here. No, I don't. And then he kind of relaxed a little bit.
Actually, that was Charles Osgood and Charles. There was another one. There were two Charles Osgood. What was the other one?
I can't remember right offhand, but I mean, it's all on YouTube. If you guys go to Toy Lives and look up, you can see the DB's interviews, Dennis's interviews here at KBHR before it was finished, and he talks about all this stuff right there on camera. So check it out. And Cold, page 79, Cold. If you want to read more about Talkeetna, Alaska, we're talking right now to the author of Talkeetna Good Time, Mr. Dennis Brown himself. And we're talking about the chapter Cold, which is the wintertime in Alaska and Christmas, etc.
It's Christmas. Yeah.
Tell us more about it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Now, I had said to you in one of my emails, if anyone's interested, I would offer, I'll sign 3 books and send them down to you. You can give them to whoever you want if someone wants 3.
I'll tell you what, will you send me 3? So I could.
Yeah, what I thought I could do is I either send them to you or send them to the whoever you pick, as long as I get their addresses. And I give away a lot of books, you know that.
Oh, and, I know.
But someone would want them, and this is kind of a fun night to do that. And it's Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you. So you don't mind if I give my book to Deb Ann here, because you autographed it. It's not personalized. But I still want a copy. So you're going to send me a copy if I give this to her, right?
I'll send you 3 if you like.
Yeah, do that. Send me 3. All right. Deb Ann?
Yes, I can do that.
I got you a copy of Talkeetna Good Time right here. Compliments of Dennis Brown himself. She says, thank you, Dennis. There you go.
Thank you.
Well, you gave it to her, not me.
All right, she's got it.
I'll replace yours. And I'll be happy to do that. You bet. I'd love to do that.
Awesome.
Why not? We got to keep this northern exposure thing alive. I wrote you a note here recently. I think you're the guy to do the next northern exposure. Now, everyone should know it'll never be called northern exposure again, ever. That's gone.
Yeah. I believe you, dude. Absolutely. And they can reboot it and everything else, but personally, I don't need it. I got my closure I needed, huh?
I used to sign my name like this.
Oh, she says she used to sign her name like that.
The little DB backwards?
DB backwards, because her initials are DB as well.
I can't believe you.
Well, the DB, yeah, that's kind of my logo or my sign.
Well, she just happens to sign it the same way, so I'll let y'all's lawyers find it out. No, she was just telling me I guess she used to sign her books and everything the same way. She couldn't believe it. DB backwards and everything. So that's pretty neat, man. It's looks like you guys are. I didn't know you wrote a book, Deb Ann. Did you write a book?
Well, I have written some poetry and stuff, but now I used to sign my initials like this with the back-to-back DB. And I saw that. It's like, oh my God, that's my signature.
Well, that's cool as hell.
That's so cool. It's like serendipitous.
Serendipitous, she says. Absolutely. So, in the small town of Talkeetna, did they do small like parades or anything for Christmas? Was it really? I mean, you probably had a lot of natives there. So, was the Christian ideal of the manger, baby Jesus, and Christmas, was that all already instilled into that small town, or did the natives already have their traditions like in Northern Exposure with the raven and all that stuff?
There wasn't very many natives in Talkeetna,
Okay.
but there were natives to the west of us. But Talkeetna itself only had a few natives. The Dolls were there, Nikolai's. There was a couple other families, but Talkeetna is actually about 100 years old. It's an old town. It used to be serviced by a boat up the Susitna River, but the cavalry at one time actually took the town over, and they pretty much deliberately drove the natives out like they seem to do everywhere. So they moved west for the most part, or into Anchorage for the most part. But we still had a few. But we didn't have Christmas parades, and part of that is because it's just so cold back in those days.
Gotcha.
And it's dark.
Yeah.
What most people overlook is it's not the cold that hurts you; it's the lack of sunlight. So it's black. I mean, pitch black from 3 o'clock until noon the next day. So.
Oh, sounds like paradise.
Oh yeah, you bet, paradise. You know, I mean, back in those days, all there was to do was throw another log on the fire, and believe it or not, ice cream was the biggest thing in town with beer. Everybody ate ice cream every night of the week and had a couple glasses of beer.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how are you loving this Texas life? I mean, it's complete contrast. It was 70 degrees here yesterday. Now it's 32. I mean, is this like your Florida? Is this where you go to retire and just hang out and chill?
Yeah, I actually bought a place in Boerne, Texas, if you don't know that.
Yeah, I knew. I thought you lived in Bastrop or whatever, like close to San Antonio or whatever.
Well, Boerne, Texas is within sight of San Antonio, and it's only if you flew with an airplane, it's about 25 miles. If you drive it, it's about 35 miles.
Huh.
And I doubt if anyone knows, but my neighbor 3 houses down is George Strait.
Oh, wow. That guy's a country legend. I'm a big fan of George Strait, no doubt.
Yeah, he's 3 houses down, and he's trying to sell his house. And from his house, you can look right into San Antonio because he's on a little knob right there. And we're on the same creek together, and he's right there. So that's where we're at. If you ever go to Google, and you'll see my place, and I'm through the 3rd house down from him.
Wow, that's amazing. So do you ever hear some hardcore jamming coming on from his yard and stuff, a little rehearsal going on?
I don't hear that. He had his place is not that big, but it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But you do see him all over town all the time. I mean, he just lives right there in that little town,
Oh, I can't imagine. I would probably, I would freak out.
Oh, he's right here now. There's a clubhouse that's a half a block from him that everyone uses, but he had his own clubhouse as well, and which he just burnt down, by the way. And but anyway, he's around town. I mean, he's no big deal local because he's just one of the guys. but the tourists have a fit if they see him, you know.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I would be one of them. I got to admit.
Well, you know, Lukenbach is just up the road from us.
Yeah, I've been through that on the way to Corpus Christi. And if you blink, you miss it.
Yeah, Luke. Yeah, you have to go. Yeah, well, Lukenbach. So he's just, he's apt to go up there and just sit on a stump and pick. I've never been there when he's there, but I hear he goes there.
Wow. Well, let me know if you head out there. If you get a hair on your ass to go to Lukenbach just to hang out, let me know and I'll meet you there, and we'll hang out. And
we go to Lukenbach. We go to Lukenbach every other Sunday.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will call you when I get a wild hair on my ass and let you know. Hey, man, you gonna be there this Sunday?
Yeah, sometimes it's excellent. If you don't, if you know anything about Lukenbach, sometimes it's excellent, and you're shocked at who's there. And for the next month, it's just local talent that happens to be very good, but you just don't know. I mean, Lukenbach, the whole community of Lukenbach has only got 8 people, I think it is, 8 or 10, something like that.
Yeah,
so it's just a couple stumps, a couple old buildings, but it sure is nice to be there. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely, man. It's in a Waylon and Willie song. You gotta love Lukenbach, Texas. But hey, man, I want
he made it famous.
Oh, go ahead. What?
I just said Willie made it famous.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's still the most famous hole in the wall ever because there's nothing there.
Well, it's kind of nice. It is, and it's almost always free. There's almost never a charge for it, and they sell beer and so barbecue, and that's about all there is. And there's places to park your camper everywhere around there on that creek there, Lukenbach Creek. But, we're 27 miles from Lukenbach from my house.
Oh, okay. I got an idea then. Next time, I'm going to hit you up next time.
I'll have an idea for you. We're in Nebraska now, and we're going to be going to Colorado in the morning. And I don't know, we'll be here for a couple more months. We'll end up in Wyoming for a while, and we'll get around. But on our way down, I think maybe I'll talk about stopping and seeing you again.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome anytime here.
But I think we should talk about next year. This is so much fun that maybe we should plan a bigger event next year.
What do you mean? It's
I'll meet you there in Texas.
I saw you post that, but I was wondering what you meant. Like, what do you mean, a Christmas show? Because
if we want to do this next year, let's see if we can make it a little bit bigger, and we'll put a couple of things together. I don't know. Maybe we'll call it something.
Well, we're not confined to Christmas. I mean, we can put something together in a few months. When you're passing through, we can always put something together anytime we want. If it doesn't have to be a year. There's no rules here. We can do whatever we want. So, you know what I'm saying?
I just want to accommodate you. Yes, I do. I do. Yep.
I'm down for anything, any ideas you got. Let's do it. I'm all about coming up with ideas and making them happen. I mean, what good is an idea you don't make happen, right? So
let me tell you about the idea I have. One idea. I spilled a little bit to you the other day. I think you should take Northern Exposure and use your energy to make it the next Northern Exposure. That's what I think. And you have the energy to do it. And you have the platform to do it.
Oh, what do you mean, like creating an actual sitcom?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, I mean, to me, I'm kind of creating the next Northern Exposure here. I mean, it's kind of like what you saw in my post, the anniversary post, from a year ago. It's like we're all the fans are making up the new Northern Exposure. We don't really need a reboot. We're creating it now as we go. Just as I am talking to you live right now. This is real. This is happening.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I think you should do this. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, I'm going to continue doing it.
You're the guy to do it.
It's only been a year, so it can only grow from here. We already doubled in participants tonight. with Deb Ann here, we doubled what we had last year in participants. But I mean, it's only been a year, and everything seems to be growing exponentially. So the sky's the limit, and it's up to us. I mean, we can create whatever we want. There are no rules. That's what's the beauty behind it. I don't need lawyers. You don't need lawyers to call me up and just talk about how everything happened. We're keeping the culture going. So if you want to plan an event, we can plan an event without talking to executives, without doing fundraisers, without asking fans for money. We can make it happen on our own, and we can do it anytime we want. And that's the beauty. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and I hadn't thought of it quite like that. But you remember who my neighbor was? And I'm just
Warren
thinking,
Buffett?
I wonder if I could put a bug. No, the other one,
Okay.
George.
Okay.
Well, here's my radical thought. I don't know him, but he's my neighbor, and my friends know him. All of the people that associate with him are friends of mine. I wonder if I could put a bug in his ear and we could do something.
You know what? You do whatever comes to your mind, and I will do whatever I can to make it happen with you, because you've done nothing but proven yourself across the test of time. You know what I mean? You, like I said, you're a man's man. That picture you posted the other day, sitting in the bar, man, you look rugged and ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Like you had your jacket on. You were sitting in a bar, and you're a bush pilot. You lit it up in Alaska. You handled life and death situations every day on the Norm. I trust any decision, any choice you make. I'm there, man. You just tell me. You've lived an extraordinary life, and I'm not one to doubt any of that.
Well, this is just a wild idea, but because we're sitting here thinking about it, and I'm just going, well, you know what? I do know a few people that I could drop except for what we do, you and I, and some of the other clubs regarding northern exposure. I don't really get out that much anymore. But for example, the guy that owns the subdivision that we live in is an old ranch. Oh, by the way, if anyone is there, did they watch the movie Son?
Did you watch the movie?
It was on television for quite.
Did you watch the movie Son? I didn't either. No, we haven't watched it. Deb Ann and I haven't seen the movie Son.
Yeah, it was on TV. It was a short series on TV.
No, I don't watch TV hardly ever anymore.
Yeah. Well, Son was filmed within a quarter of a mile of George Strait's house, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And it was a TV series, and anyway, it was just good. And what I'm just trying to say is that I think I know some people I could pitch this to. And if you really think about that, maybe we could put together something.
Well, let's talk about it.
I'll be back in Texas.
Let's talk about it, and we don't have to wait until next year. Let's talk about this when you handle your business up there and you pass by here. Swing by and talk to me, and we'll do a live show right here. I would love to have you. You were here in K-Bear before it was built. You got to see it before anyone else. So I would love to have you right here sitting beside me, talking about it inside the finished K-Bear, and going over tons of more stuff. But, I mean, you want to brainstorm, you want to create, that's what it's all about. That's what this is about. So come on over and brainstorm and create.
You know what I like to create in terms of NX is I like to encourage people that the way in the north it's worth looking at. And all of us tonight love northern exposure. Now there are two camps of people that love northern exposure. Those that like the way of life and those that like the acting and the sets that we all got to watch. But nevertheless, I like to promote northern exposure because of my experience. Everyone that lived in the north, it's like being a goose. We want to go back, even though the weather forces us at old age to leave. We all want to go back, and as fans, most fans feel that way.
Absolutely.
You hear them say, "I wish I could go back to that." and that's why I do this, is because I want to remember the good times that we had up north. That's why I do it.
Absolutely. I totally concur with that. And
Yeah.
it's a nostalgia thing. We totally, I mean, that's what keeps it alive. The need to go back.
Yes, it is.
So on a final note, Dennis, DB, what would you prefer to be called, DB, right?
It doesn't matter. DB was shortened in Alaska years and years ago, and almost anyone in Alaska knows me as just simply DB. That's all there is to it.
Gotcha. Then I'll call you DB or Mr. Brown. All right, Mr.
No,
Brown.
Mr. Brown. He died years ago.
Okay, gotcha. So on a final note, you said before there seems to be some sentiment about people that want to discredit you, and I understand. Believe me, I understand, because I got some people, some shady people that are very, very jealous that I built this K-Bear. You know what I mean? And
yes,
there are some
I know what
people.
You mean more than.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I know what you mean. Period.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's people out there that like to spit on parades, that, you know, everything else. So what do you got to say to people that just automatically, you know, discredit you? Like, oh, who is this guy? I read this book and it didn't mention his name at all. I heard Rob Morrow. I know Darren Burroughs, and I sent him a text and stuff, and he said he doesn't know who this guy is. So therefore, he must be lying. You know, and you've acknowledged that sentiment. Prove him wrong. You've acknowledged that sentiment before on your last interview. So what do you have to say to people that kind of that hear what you say and then approach you with that kind of discord?
Well, I don't hear that as much as I did at one time, and there I do get a few people that are skeptics once in a while. But you know what? I don't really care. Those are people that know nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And at one time, it kind of did bother me, especially, you know, there's another site that I got on here about a couple of years before I met you. And when I got on their site at their request, they had 67 members. And we did kind of like what we're doing here tonight. And in a short period of time, you know, where it's at now. And, you know, you just kind of go, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm 75 years old. I've had a heck of a life. Some people just will never believe anything, and that's fine. You know, it's okay now. It doesn't matter. You know, my life has been a little bit busy. How many people got to live next to Warren Buffett, you know? So there's things, and I hardly ever talk about that one. But there's lots of stuff that's been fun, and so what, you know? But that's part of the reason I keep journals too. And that, you know, if Byrd or you know, or any of these explorers hadn't kept journals, how about Columbus or anybody like that? If they hadn't kept journals, no one would know what they did. That was the reason I kept journals. Was some of the stuff I did was pretty remarkable, you know, and I wanted people to have a written fact about it, but I don't care that much now whether they have a fact or not. We just do what we can do, and it doesn't matter now. You know?
Exactly. It's like you said before.
Yeah.
You know what's true. You don't feel obligated to prove anything.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, you got your journals and your stories, which to me, to me is just fine. You know, you said you're not making money. You give your books away. You know, if you
and you know
you can find your book on Amazon, but there was a time there, you were giving them away. I mean, I want to talk like 3 or 4 years ago. You were like, just write me a good review, and you down with Northern Exposure, I'll sign it and send it to you.
Yeah. You know, when I grew up with surrounded by people with money. And I'll just tell you the fact. I tell people in my close circle oftentimes, I've been rich and I've been poor, and poor is better. And they go, what? And I go, money does not do anything for you. It doesn't. You know, it's adventures and meeting people and doing things. But money itself's worthless. And I grew up. I just told you, we had 2 Learjets in the yard, plus 3 helicopters, plus. I mean, it's just not worth anything. And I really, I try not to make very much money. I'm not out here to make money. I'm out here to make it memories. That's what I'd like to
There
be
you
about.
go.
And I'm at the bottom end of this thing. I tell people I'm the last knot of my croak rope, and that's just a true statement. At my age and my health, you can't last too much longer. Well, do I want to make money, or do I want to recall and have the memories? And we just talked about that. It's the memories.
Yes.
It's the things that we've done. My God, I'm in Texas. I'm surrounded with people that's got money, and it's like, those are my friends. And I go, is this what you want? And the truth of the matter is, no. It's not what they want. They want better health, or they want good memories, or they want good family structures. So if all we do is place it on money, we're in the wrong direction. And I never ever used my position with Northern Exposure to make any money other than the initial first check. And I only did that because they owed it to me. They agreed to pay it. That was their offer. And I since then I've never taken a dime. And I've had attorneys come up to me and say, not too long ago, well, I think you could sue for intellectual property rights and do this or that. And I go, I signed a contract saying that I would accept this money. In fact, when I signed the contract, I'm telling you a little bit of stuff that we were involved in just last few months ago with United Artists. I said, this is my payment. I expect nothing further. Now, the laws have changed. We didn't have intellectual property rights in 1979.
Right.
Well, we could sue them and get this or that. No, we're not going to do that. Not with my permission. You're not going to do that, because that wasn't the deal. Period.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep. It changes everything.
Yep. It's just that's not my motivator. Is the money? I can tell you right now. My motivator is to die with my boots on and enjoy life.
Well, you know what? I stand beside you and spreading the word, baby. So let's collaborate.
You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Let's make this happen and collaborate. And next time you're passing through here, do not hesitate to step off I-35 and come and holler at me. It's only a 10-minute break. You know what I'm saying?
We'll talk again sometime.
Yeah. Let's figure this out and make something happen. Well, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas
to you, DB, and Merry Christmas to your wife and you and yours. And thank you so much for calling in. It's been a blast. An educational pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye. All right. And there you have it, everybody. Dennis Brown, the man, the journals.